Hi, I'm Chris from Deus Ex Machina. I am here with my fiance.
And I'm Dave from Rampant Wolf Games, not his fiance.
No, I was sorry the fact that your dog is underneath the table just shaking it out. Anyway, my fiance doesn't like being on camera, and his wife doesn't like being on camera, so we're here. And we are going to do a review. This time we are talking about Tighten the Dice. And to explain the rules, here's me in the future. This is... Okay, let's try this again. This is... Crap. This is Tighten Dice. A relatively small box with a bunch of boards, cards, and custom dice. Each player receives a player board, 5 matching white dice. Dumping out all the contents was not a good idea. 5 matching white dice and 1 black bonus die. Each player also receives 3 wound tokens set aside and 1 of each token representing the 5 various creatures a player can capture. Each player receives an action card. Before play, advance all the creatures to level 1. By the way, these tokens are double-sided with illustrations instead of names on the alternate side. Go through these creature cards, removing any cards depending on player count. Lay them out according to type with cheaper cards at the top. The first player rolls his or her 5 dice. If your first roll shows any wound tokens, you may re-roll those at once. At this point, you can commit one action, spending any number of matching results. With 3 Kraken symbols, I could purchase the top Kraken creature card. The number of symbols equates to cost in dice or symbols acquired on your character board. The symbols on the cards also relate to the cost in activating the action later. This card would only cost 1 die, so that one gets shifted to spent dice, while the others remain in active dice. The other action I can do is spend these 3 symbols to advance the Kraken token along its slider. 3 symbols would place it in the cage, making it impossible for other players to reduce it. However, this would eliminate me from that current turn. Let's not do that for now. Player 2's turn, and I forgot that when player 1 rolled out 1 wound on the reroll, he acquired 1 wound token. If you acquire all 3, you are out for that turn. Okay, where were we? Player 2, reroll the wound. Okay, that sucks. In this case, let's use these 2 Chimera results to advance the Chimera slider up 2. This ends player 2's involvement this turn. Well, not really. He flips his action card to attack. He can no longer commit to actions, but he can now attack other players. Back to player 1. He can either re-roll his active dice, his spent dice, or all his dice. Hoping for another Kraken, I'll re-roll the spent die. Nope. But I will take this opportunity to activate my recently acquired creature card using a Kraken symbol to do so. In this case of this sabotage, I roll the bonus die and reduce the result from another player's slider. Bazinga. God, I hate that show. That card is no longer accessible this turn. Back to player 2, now in attack mode, he rolls his 5 dice, but this time he refers to his attack card, able to re-roll dice once. Wounds no longer affect you. We're looking to get 3 pair of anything. I'll take these 2 and reroll. With 3 Minotaurs, I get to activate this attack. Each rival player must discard any 1 die this turn from either active or spent. Back to player 1. Now with only 4 dice, he rolls all of them. Gains a wound. Eventually, he'll finally advance the slider and a new round will begin. Attack cards and creature cards are flipped over, the first player token advances to the next player, and the process repeats. So, to reiterate, as the printed rules are somewhat confusing, after rolling you can activate one of 3 actions: buy a card, use a card, or capture a beast, the latter ending your ability to use the other 2 actions that turn. The cost to purchase or activate a creature is the same, the cost on the card, but you can additionally use the symbols you acquired on your sliders. Although this may appear counterintuitive, the more expensive cards do possess relatively powerful abilities, like this one, which allows me to advance 2 of my other sliders. The endgame is triggered when one player finally cages 3 of his creatures. Finish that round, then individual players score. You get a point for every advanced position on the creature slider, so a fully caged animal is worth 4 points, as well as receiving points for each symbol found on acquired creature cards. Most points win. And that's, upside down, Tighten Dice. There you go. So there we go. That's Tighten Dice by
Eagle Griffin Games.
Eagle Griffin Games. And let's first talk about component quality.
There's not many components to gauge quality on, but the dice are...
The dice are cut. We have custom dice. We have, I think, a pretty high quality on the cards, the boards. They didn't need to have to do that. It has your favorite
UV spot coating.
UV spot coating, which I do believe you look forward to on every
do.
Yep, every Kickstarter you go to. So spot UV, I'm in.
Yep.
I actually think the quality is quite nice when you get down to it. I mean, custom dice, they are thermal printed dice. The cards are pretty good. They're very shiny. They're very thick. There's good quality to them. People can see that in the video. So yeah, it's almost an overproduced game in my opinion, considering the rules.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the box is small, the game isn't as much to speak of. So it's important to note that it is semi-abstract. You are playing as a nondescript person trying to capture these famous
Titans.
The mythological creatures from legend and yore. So there isn't much to it. It's pretty light. That being said, I won't criticize a game for not being terribly thematic. It has a theme. It's more than we can ask for compared to other games that are in its of the same ilk. Okay, well, the thing is, we're dancing around the way the mechanics look. I think we should just jump to final thoughts.
Fair enough.
Because this comes down to it, because we've broken up final thoughts, but I think because I know you are going to rant while I drink some water.
No. My rant basically is that...
You ranted out from the last 3 or 4
I'm
times
ranting. So honestly, this game... It does an injustice to the word game. There's not much of a game in this box. I don't know what they were trying to achieve, other than, like you said, a filler game, but it is way overpriced for that.
How much does it cost, by the way?
Well, I paid, I think, $45 on Kickstarter for it. And that was US. So... for maybe it was lower, but still.
That's Kickstarter for you.
Yeah.
When this thing hits retail, it's going to be $30.
Yeah, and for what it is, the components to me are worth more than the game, which is sad. Honestly, I think they spent more money on components than they did making sure this was a fun game, which is sad. And that's what I found most frustrating, was that when you're playing the game and you're constantly going back to the rule book, which is poorly written, and you're trying to figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing, and there's even points where the rule book contradicts itself by using the same term for different things in the game, and where someone would say, well, people are fallible, they make mistakes, etc., etc., etc. It's like, yes, but that is what proofreading is for, and that's why you should make sure that your rule book is correct, because that is simple, it's high school stuff, man. Don't submit your report with, mistakes. Yeah. For me, this game flew out of my collection. It never made it to the coveted shelf. It ended up in the shelf of shame, then in the shelf of get the heck out of the house, and then it flew out of the house. So, that's my fault.
Into my collection, which is the reason why I came back to haunt you. Why is this back in the house? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He made me.
All right, what's your final thoughts?
It's not that bad.
Oh, I knew it.
Knew it. Okay, once again, I think because I watched the playthrough video before. Now, a couple of things. A, you're 100% right. This is not a $40 game. This is a $30 game. But the irony, of course, is that which version of Roll For It do you have? Do you have the $40 version?
I do. I have the fancy.
So the irony, of course, is that we both have the $40 version of Roll For It.
But that's more fun.
This is the $40 version. Okay, so because there's 2 games that this harkens back to that reminds me the most about it. One is Star Trek 5 Year Mission, which is a co-op. This is competitive, although this has a solo mode. There's that, and of course, there's Roll For It. First of all, there's another game that I reviewed also on this channel that has to bring up, which is Stuffed. Stuffed wishes it was this good. And I'm not even saying this game's good, but Stuffed was even more simple. Because Stuffed, it was rolling dice, doing a Yahtzee, grabbing some dice, if you could, discarding 1 die, re-rolling, and then maybe claiming some cards. Yeah. This at least gives you an option. You can roll, you can set aside some dice, set aside some other dice. You keep on doing it until you reach a point where you're going to be claiming a card, or advancing up. And then you're out of that turn. But you're not out completely because you can then still roll your dice to curtail or push back other people. And then once everyone has finished, then that's it. I think this is really good in a 2 to 3 option. I think I wouldn't play it all the way up to 4. I think a 2-player option is really solid because once you're out, the other person maybe gets 1 or 2 rounds of trying to take that before it's over. If you have 4 people, suddenly the first person out is hitting other players a lot more frequently. Yeah. So there's a lot more take that. But in a 2-player game, we hardly ever had that. So comparing it to it's more expensive. But once again, if you're splurging for the deluxe version of Roll For It, you've basically paid that price point. Custom dice, really nice cards. The turns are very, very quick. The turns are very, very quick. Like Roll For It, like other games, like Stuffed. You're done. You stop your turn, and you're like, oh, it's my turn again. It's super fast. There's not much. You take your dice, you roll it, you figure out where you want to place it, and the first person who gets it gets to claim, I think, 3 of the 5 Titans. That triggers the end game, and then you score points. But just because the person who scores that final one doesn't necessarily mean to get the most points. I was lucky in the fact that I had a bunch of Titans that were near the front. I would have played with the system a bit more so that having them in cages gave you more points, because it quite literally is only 1 more point. The only reason why you have them in cages
is just so nobody else can take
is that nobody else can decrease them.
Yeah.
And it also triggers the end game. Yeah. So it's almost like Azul, where you are almost more inclined to bring up all the others. So if you just bring 3 up to max and everything else is down to the base, you may still lose the game.
Yeah.
Like Nicole and I, by the end of our game, we both had 3 Titans in cages, but I had higher points. She had more cards, but I had squeezed up a few more points. So she was a little frustrated because I was literally figuring the game out as we were playing. I said I wouldn't play this game to 4 players. I think 2 or 3. It is a filler game. It is very, very fast.
Now, and see, that's going back to. I'll reopen my final thoughts on one thing in this one game. When it's a filler game and it's not that much of a game, there is no excuse for your manual to be bad. Yeah, the manual doesn't really clarify how things like so. Yeah, people have often said, and this is especially true in a couple of other games that we've reviewed and I reviewed, the fact that a bad manual will kill a game. Yeah, I think one of the reasons why a lot of people, like Apocrypha, isn't as successful as it is because everyone knows that the manual is awful. Yeah, and we were talking about a game that we will certainly review on a future date just to get it out of your system, which is Master of the Galaxy, which a lot of people have said that the manual is really, really bad. The manual here isn't great. They could have spent a bit more time working on it. The worst part too, I think, is I
was reading through Master of the Galaxy. I love the fact that all the images of all the game is just screen caps and Tabletopia. Yeah. I figured that out. Like, literally the first page, I was like, that's in Tabletopia. They're just screen capping Tabletopia. Like, that's pretty cheap. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. No, it's just basically... That's my biggest qualm is, like, it's like an 8-page manual, but they couldn't manage to put... Like, I'll give...
No images either. It's flat. It's just... That's it. Yeah. Like, thankfully, it's one of those situations... This is a game that just needs, like, a 1-page... quick summary rules. Like, this game is super easy, folks. Here it is. Boom, 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 boom. Here's the manual you can read if you want to know the details on certain things.
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of the reason why I dislike this game so much is because it's kind of like, you know, it's that joke. It's just like you had one job to do and you screwed it up.
So Jonathan, you had the manual.
Yeah,
you know, screwed. Well, like I said, I'm not even saying we do all these videos on Gateway Gamers, and it was also on my channel, and you would not stop talking about how much you dislike this game. I actually thought when you talked about Titan Dice, it was this colossal $100 juggernaut that you would blow money on, full of miniatures, and then it was like the Walking Dead game that you hate so much. It's just like, oh my god, I spent so much money on this game, and look at it, and then you show me the box, and I was like, that's nothing. It's like when the kobold kills the fighter, and you're like, that's it? Because like I've been. He hit me where it hurt. It was a sensitive part.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Like, where did the tiny game touch you?
So yeah, that's just for me. It's just it wasn't much of a game. So how did they screw it up?
I think they screwed up on the manual, but I don't have a problem with the game. You don't like the game. I don't mind the game. I think this is because I like games that take something simple and fast, like Roll For It, and then build up on that to create something that's a little different. Search Your 5-Year Mission is that, but with a little bit of a theme, and cooperative. Stuffed takes it and goes, that's fine. We'll just leave it the way it is and not do much. And I criticize him for that. This one at least tries to do something more. I like the fact that it has that Yahtzee mechanic. It has a little bit of take that, but it doesn't have to last very long, so it's not a huge problem.
Yeah.
The dice are pretty neat. You get to claim these cards. You get to flip over when you go from standard turns to defense. Yeah, I mean, this should be a $29, $30 game. It shouldn't be $44, right? The same right. People buy the cheap version of Roll For It.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your score? And don't hold back.
Out of
10.
I'm docking 5 points for a bad manual. So
-2.
I'm going to give it 2.5. And docking the other 2.5 points just because I don't find it that fun a game.
So it's 0?
No, it's 2.5 out of 10.
2.5, and I'm not going to 2.5. So just call it 0. So it's 2.5. So from 10 to 5 for the manual, and then there's just 2.5. So really, if that manual was golden, this would be like a 7.5?
Might be, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because a bad manual can kill a game, and that's a...
And the funny thing is, it was one of those things where, like we mentioned Apocrypha, we look at, I was like, I think there's a good game here, and it's one of those situations where there's a bad apple here, and it's one of those things. Is it? I don't know. A manual as a game publisher, and you've done writing as well. We both know that it's just stressing when there's one bad apple in the nest, and this is one of those situations where a manual is that bad apple that ruins the whole thing. And part of me is just like, I want to forgive them and kind of move on because the game is actually not that bad. I will give it. I don't know what I gave Stuffed. I give this one a 7.
Okay.
And oddly enough, is I think as a filler game, and so I'm not comparing it to the other 7s.
As a filler game, I don't still only give it a 5 out of 10 just because it's not that fun a game. I don't find. I did not get any, even after learning it, I didn't get any enjoyment out of it like I did, say, Roll For It.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Because this was quite literally one of the most anticipated game reviews for us because he would not stop talking about how much he despised this game.
Yep.
And I find the game is pretty good. You know what? I'm gonna lend you Stuffed, and you're gonna be like, oh boy. Or actually, you're going to come back and say, no, Stuffed is way better. And then we're going to have a fight like a cage match.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I find this game is way better than Stuffed.
There you go.
Because I played Stuffed and I was just like... Because unlike Stuffed has game turns where you don't accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. In this, you roll a turn, you're doing something. It could be marginal, but it's something.
Yeah.
Stuffed, you can spend 3 or 4 turns without doing anything. And that's why this game is better than Stuffed.
You could still end up doing nothing on some turns in this game if you roll really badly.
Yeah, but you can still set aside. Like I said, in our game, there was never a situation. We could always advance, move things, and once you claim a card, then at that point you're rolling dice to try to hurt other people.
Yeah.
You're always doing something, and the strategy changes. So yeah, so that's my my score. 7. I give it a 7, maybe a 7.5. This has been Titan Dice. This has been
Dave from Map and Wolf Games.
And this has been Chris from Deus Ex Machina.